Welcome back everyone, and if you're new here, welcome to the channel where we break down the latest news you need to know in a way that actually makes sense. Today, we've got something incredibly important to discuss, especially for millions of South Africans who depend on monthly support from SASSA, the South African Social Security Agency. There's been a growing buzz, some whispers online, and now more recently some major clues have surfaced that suggest something big might be happening with the R350 and R500 grants. Yes, you heard that right. Not only is there talk of payments being made in May, but there may be a special combination plan in place, something that has long been speculated, but never confirmed. That may finally be changing. After months of confusion, delays, and uncertainty surrounding SASSA payments, we may finally have a clearer picture, or at least the most solid hint yet, that SASSA has developed a payment structure that's going to combine both the R350 and R500 grants in a way that could drastically impact the lives of beneficiaries across South Africa. Now, before we get too deep into the details, let's remember what's at stake here. The R350 Social Relief of Distress (SRD) grant has been a lifeline for millions of unemployed South Africans since its introduction during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Since then, the grant has seen extension after extension, with the government admitting that while temporary, it's become a critical tool in keeping many families above the poverty line. On the other hand, there's the R500 amount, which is slightly more elusive. Many remember it from earlier phases of social support, sometimes appearing as a top-up to other grants like the child support grant or disability payments. But more recently, it's been part of a mystery. Rumors and leaks have hinted at its return, possibly as part of a combined grant effort. And now in May 2025, that rumor appears to be gaining real traction. So what is this so-called secret payment combination that's got everyone talking? Let's start by breaking down what the public knows and what's been quietly circulating among those close to the SASSA system. First off, beneficiaries have been reporting some very curious activity on their SASSA status pages and bank accounts. Over the past few days, several people have posted online that their payment amounts don't match the standard R350. Instead, some report receiving an extra R150, others a lump sum of R500, and even some claiming to have been told by SASSA call center agents that there was a new payment code being tested. This is huge. Because when SASSA begins testing new payment codes or systems, it's not just a technical tweak. It usually means a structural change is coming. Insiders familiar with SASSA's digital infrastructure say the agency has been developing a back-end update to allow for more flexible payments, essentially giving them the ability to combine different grant streams under a single disbursement. Think of it as modular social support. Instead of receiving separate amounts at different times, the recipient would get one consolidated payment. If this is indeed what's happening, it would represent a massive shift in how social grants are distributed in South Africa. For many, especially those living in rural areas or with limited access to digital services, this would mean fewer trips to pay points, fewer delays caused by failed verifications, and most importantly, a more reliable financial cushion each month. So where does the R500 come in? That's the fascinating part. Based on the most recent data shared during a parliamentary Q&A session, the Department of Social Development quietly acknowledged that temporary additional relief measures may be deployed during transitional periods. Though the language was vague, several MPs interpreted this as a sign that additional funds could be disbursed beyond the standard R350 amount. The R500 figure seems to tie directly into this idea. Rather than roll out an entirely new grant, the government could be issuing a one-time or recurring relief combination payment, effectively merging the R350 with a top-up of R150. And yes, that brings us right to R500. To add more fuel to this fire, let's not ignore what President Ramaphosa himself hinted at during his recent economic address. While speaking about reducing poverty and expanding the safety net, he referenced streamlined support systems that would bring more dignity and consistency to how South Africans receive assistance. That might sound like political speak, but if you read between the lines, it sounds an awful lot like a signal that combined or increased payments are being considered, maybe even already in motion. We've also got to consider the political timing of all this. South Africa is fast approaching another key election period, and historically, governments have used social grant adjustments to not only support citizens but also to reinforce political goodwill. A boost in grant payments, even a small one like R150 on top of the R350, could mean a lot when it comes to public trust. In that context, a new R500 disbursement, whether temporary or part of a bigger shift, makes strategic sense for the current administration. Now, let's talk logistics, because it's one thing to announce a payment change, and another to actually deliver it. One of the major problems with SASSA over the past year has been erratic payment schedules, verification delays, and communication breakdowns. But now, internal documents leaked by a former SASSA contractor suggest that the agency has rolled out a new automated approval system. This AI-assisted tool is supposed to verify ID numbers, banking details, and income thresholds in real time, cutting down wait times from weeks to just a few days. If this system is functioning as claimed, it could easily accommodate a sudden change like adding a new payment code or combining existing grants. But here's where it gets even more interesting: some of these recent R500 payments don't appear on the normal SASSA status checks. Beneficiaries have reported seeing their usual pending or approved for the R350, but the additional R150 doesn't reflect there. Instead, it shows up only once the payment lands in their bank accounts. This suggests that the R500 amount is being processed separately, possibly under a hidden or internal code not visible to the public. In software terms, this might mean SASSA has launched a stealth test, where only a portion of users receive the new format to monitor how it works before going nationwide. Of course, this raises concerns. Why not be transparent about this if it's meant to help people? And that's a valid question. The answer may lie in the complexity of government budgeting. Every rand that gets disbursed needs to be accounted for, especially with oversight from the Treasury and various auditing bodies. If this R500 payment is still technically in a testing or provisional phase, SASSA may be legally restricted from publicly announcing it until it's been fully approved at the cabinet level. That said, civil society organizations like Black Sash and the Institute for Economic Justice have already called on the government to make this transition permanent. They argue that the R350 is simply not enough in today's economy, with food prices, transport, and basic necessities skyrocketing. A top-up of just R150 could significantly improve the lives of millions, and according to their projections, the state could afford it by reallocating a portion of unspent departmental budgets. In the field, the feedback is clear. We spoke to several grant recipients who have either received the new R500 amount or heard about it through friends. Their reactions: shock, relief, and cautious optimism. One woman from KwaMashu told us she thought it was a mistake when she saw R500 in her account, and she immediately withdrew it in case SASSA tried to reverse the payment. Another man in Soweto said his cousin got R500 but his own payment remained at R350, leading him to believe that only certain people were being selected for the new amount. This kind of confusion is what makes the secrecy surrounding the rollout frustrating. When people don't know what's going on, they can't plan. And when they can't plan, the grant's usefulness is reduced. So what should you do if you're a beneficiary right now? First, keep checking your status via the official SASSA channels, especially the online SRD portal. Second, monitor your bank account regularly around the payment date, because as we mentioned, the new R500 amount may not show up on your status page before it lands in your account. Third, beware of scams. As excitement builds over the possibility of increased payments, we are already seeing fake SMS messages and phishing links promising early access to the R500. Only trust official SASSA messages and avoid clicking on any unfamiliar links. Let's also talk about what the future might hold. If this payment combination succeeds and becomes standardized, we could see an entirely new baseline for the SRD grant. That's right, the R350 amount may be officially replaced by R500 going forward. Some economists are already predicting that the government may announce such a change during the upcoming mid-year fiscal review, where the finance minister could reallocate funding based on Q2 data. That would be a game changer. Not just for unemployed citizens, but also for those in the informal sector who live paycheck to paycheck and rely on this money to survive. Interestingly, there's also been some movement in the private sector that hints at the growing importance of these grants. Several major retailers, including Shoprite and Pick n Pay, have updated their internal systems to recognize the R500 as a separate line item when people pay with grant money. That's no accident. These companies wouldn't make such changes unless they had reason to believe that the R500 is becoming a standard amount. So is the R500 payment real? At this point, all signs point to yes, at least for some recipients. Is it official yet? Not quite. But the pieces are falling into place. We have technical updates, administrative clues, political hints, and even direct reports from the ground. If history has taught us anything, it's that when enough signs appear, something is definitely cooking behind the scenes. And if you're asking me, it looks like SASSA's secret payment combination is more than just a rumor. It may be the beginning of a major transformation in South Africa's social support system. We'll continue watching the story closely. In the meantime, let me know in the comments, have you received the payment of R500 this month? Do you know anyone who has? Let's share information, verify each other's experiences, and help each other stay informed. Because at the end of the day, this is about people's livelihoods. And every rand matters. Thanks so much for tuning in today. If you found this update helpful, please take a moment to like this video so it reaches more people who need it. And don't forget to subscribe with notifications on so you never miss an important update. We'll be back with more breaking news, insights, and community stories you can count on. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and stay informed.